Obviously, it's an abbreviation of radical. And I think in some ways these days we think of it as a just an alternative, a synonym for cool. But it didn't start out like that, right? Like radical became a sort of familiar term in America in the 60s, talking about these, you know, college campus revolutionaries and or wannabe revolutionaries and the civil rights movement and people who were pushing against the boundaries of the norm, which is of course what it means to be radical, is to exceed the common understanding of something, whether it's politics, racial position, social position, whatever it is. And so it was in the world as a utilized term, but it wasn't a slang term. It certainly wasn't abbreviated until California, late 70s, early 80s, in the surfing and skateboarding community. And there, they were looking for something that exceeded cool, you know, that like if you know, did a 360 on your skateboard or got air on your surfboard, that you were being radical and that was radical. And then, of course, that was abbreviated to RAD. And it's no surprise then that the people of Radwood would, utilizing the structure of Goodwood, another car show, say, let's do a new car show featuring late 20th century cars. What should we call them? Let's call them Rad, and let's call it the Rad era, and then we'll have Radwood. And I liked it. I liked it. That's why I made the Rad Report, was because I thought that was like a fun categorization. I like those cars too. Obviously, they're the cars of my youth. But lately, I've had a hard time wanting to make car content or use that term so much because it turns out that after all this time, after the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the rebirth of the term, we are now finally living in a time that is truly radical. And it feels a little weird to use it as slang, right? When the polarization and the extremity of social conversation has turned like things that would have been way outside of the norm, like not getting vaccinated for the measles or like transitioning pre-puberty kids into the opposing gender, like things that would have just been like so like what, why, don't do that, or that sounds kind of wild, why would you do that? These things have become normalized